And I am here with Stephen of Stephen's Soul in the Seven. You were my very first interview of the new year. Happy New Year, by the way.
Happy New Year. Thank you for having me on.
Do you believe in New Year's resolutions?
Yeah, I do. I think that they're really cool. In general, I'm all about like self-improvement or that type of thought, always getting better. I do love New Year's resolutions. And I think you can choose at any time to kind of kick it off, but there seems to be something in the air with everyone else doing it and just the changing of the year. Obviously, it's just arbitrary in terms of like one day to the next. But yeah, I think that's a great way to kind of choose to do something new.
Do you have any resolutions for the band Stephen's Soul in the Seven?
Well, I would say one of my big goals is to release a studio album that we've been working on. So at some point in 2026, I'd like to release the studio album that we were working on. It's going to flow together, sort of inspired by Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, those types of albums that flow one to another. So I've been in the studio working on that with our producer, and that's my big goal. Otherwise, maintain my health, stick with my morning routine, which is exercising, vocal exercises, and then meditation and journaling, and play our next big venue. So we're excited about our show this Friday at Union Stage. And then I have my eyes on Black Cat, hopefully in DC.
Those are some good venues. Is there a local venue that you like to go to like attend a show, but maybe wouldn't want to play live in?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm down to play almost any venue if the circumstances are right. But I've seen other really good shows at Union Stage. I really love, my dream venue is the Anthem. So seeing the Anthem here in DC, I just saw My Morning Jacket there in October. I've seen them a few times, and I would absolutely love to play the Anthem. So if anyone from the Anthem's listening,
manifest that for 2026, right? Like that's a thing now that people get to do. So let's put that out there.
Sure.
The DC area has so many great live venues. I don't think I've been to one where I'm like, oh, this was shitty. So
yeah. No, I just saw another awesome show at DC9. One of my bandmates is in another band, and they just rocked DC9. The Fillmore in Silver Spring is awesome. 930 Club, Atlantis. So there's so many great venues out there. I'm honored and excited to play Union Stage on Friday, and we're excited for what could be next. We'll see.
So for viewers out there, Stephen and I happen to meet each other at a thrift store of all places. It is where I very well frequent. Were you thrift shopping, or were you just trolling for hipsters?
I was thrift shopping and trolling for hipsters, but it seems like a perfect place to meet people that want to attend live music. I found, I was shopping first, but at this point, I have those cards, invitations to the show, and then just anyone that I sense could be into live music, I just hand them out and invite. There are people, some people react differently, but most people are like interested. I feel like that's it's just interesting with so much digital marketing nowadays. There's ads and posts on social media. You're like, sometimes I feel like this just gets lost in the void, or it's not reaching a bigger audience. So it's been kind of fun to be out there and meet people in person. And I feel like that's maybe an easier way to make a quick connection with someone and give them inspiration to actually care about your music.
Yeah, I think that we're so used to, dealing with communication this way that when someone actually talks to you, and I teach high school, so I see this all the time, is that when you try to have a conversation with someone, depending on how old they are, you can see their ability to have that conversation or not. And I think having a memorable, actual verbal conversation goes a long way right now.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that I got to meet you, obviously, for this opportunity. Thank you again.
It was just very funny. I happened to be flipping through the racks, and Steven came up to me and talked to me about his show. And I was like, well, you know what? It just so happens that I have interviewed a bunch of bands. So I thought it was a good chance to get to know more about you and your music. What is it about your live show that you think fans gravitate towards?
We have awesome band chemistry. So our band really loves each other. We're laughing, having fun. Um, and we have a really big band. So we can have a pretty dynamic sound in terms of we have 9 members. So saxophone, trumpet, lead guitar, 2 backing singers, drums, keys, bass guitar, and I play rhythm, acoustic or electric guitar. So yeah, we can really create a broad range. The other thing that's fun is that we have some comedic songs. So we're going to be rolling out more songs that are in the lane of kind of comedic rock songs. Um, I do improv comedy as well with Washington Improv Theater. So I love to make people laugh. I love to make myself laugh. It's been something that I've been into for over 10 years now. Actually, I started in 2014 in Scotland and started to do improv because I lived there for 3 years. And that was like one of my big hobbies. And then as I actually started my music journey through comedy. So in 2020, I had always played music, and done like a little bit of songwriting, and played in bands and stuff, but I hadn't really written a lot of original material. But in 2020, whenever the pandemic hit, our improv theater shut down in person practices, shows, this and that. But they started up live online groups and rehearsals and classes. And I took one called comedic songwriting. So I ended up our assignment was to write a new song every week. And it was supposed to be like different themes of how it could be funny. So actually at our show on Friday, we're going to play for the first time as a full band one of the songs that I wrote in 2020 as a comedic song live with the full band. So we're excited about that. But yeah, I started my music journey in terms of original songwriting through comedic songwriting. And then there was a couple that I feel like I was like super excited to play for our online class. I'm like, this is so funny. And then it just didn't really connect with people in a comedic way. But I'm like, maybe I can just turn this into a regular song since it's not funny, I guess. That's what, but yeah, then as I started to learn a little bit the basics of songwriting, I was like, I mean, I love to be funny, but I think that there's other times where I'm in the mood to be more deep and spiritual or say something else. So it's been fun to kind of blend those two worlds.
Well, and most musicians, they start playing in elementary school, middle school, high school, but then the songwriting to go the comedic route first that's a very unique path. So yeah. I think it's interesting that obviously not all of your songs are comedic, but there are a few that you're gonna slip in for the live show. I like that.
Thank you.
So I remember asking you the other day, but I also didn't write it down because I wasn't writing anything down. I asked you to describe your band's sound in 3 words. I don't expect you to remember either, but what are the 3 words that come to mind for you today?
I think I said psychedelic folk rock. If you check out our social media, we did another interview in that same thrift shop a couple of days before, where I asked a shopper about whether she was interested in psychedelic folk rock, if she's a fan of psychedelic folk rock. And it's just funny because I feel like people sometimes have trouble even imagining like, what is it? So yeah, I'd say psychedelic folk rock. I've had big influences in my life from the Beatles, My Morning Jacket, Mac DeMarco, Dave Matthews Band. But yeah, I'd say psychedelic folk rock is the genre that seems to be the closest. There's so many blends, like alternative rock, 90s inspired rock, classic rock. We have a lot of inspiration from now with like musical comedy, some of our songs being comedic, jam band. It all kind of blends together. It's tricky I get that question a lot of like, what's your sound? and it does kind of depend from song to song. So, but yeah, psychedelic folk rock. I love Pink Floyd in general, psychedelic influenced rock. So I think that that would be my choice.
For anyone who is watching this interview later on and decides to go to YouTube or go to social media, what is the first song that you would want them to hear to get the best sense of your overall sound? Like if you hear this song, that's our band for sure.
Sure. I'd say, good question. We just released a song in October called Sacred Energy, and that song is kind of a rock. It has a little bit more of a like 60s rock sound. I'd say go ahead and start at Sacred Energy. The one that we released before that was two songs called Sunshine, Wine, and The Moon. They kind of flow together, but that has a little bit more of a twangier country folk rock sound that I really enjoyed. It has a more of a summery sound to it. And then another really overall one would be Eternal Peace, sort of like a journal or a general alternative rock song. And then we re-released a song in the spring called Spring (parentheses) I Made It, which is kind of like a rock anthem. And that's a little more like starts slow, but it builds up to a bigger rock sound. But yeah, go ahead and start at Sacred Energy. Also on January 9th, the day of the show, we're releasing a live in studio album called Live at Manor Time, which is a studio that wasn't too far from where we met in Silver Spring. And that is really representative of our live sound. We have a lot of the songs that we've released so far. We also have a new one coming, which is going to be, I'm really excited about this one. That will be on the live album, but an even better studio version will get released likely in February, which is called Fifth Best Singer in the Band. Because we have so many incredible singers in our band that I realized as I was I felt underqualified, and I still do feel underqualified to be the lead singer of the band because like our trumpet player is a professional wedding singer. He actually take vocal lessons from our trumpet player and our bass player. And then our backing singers also like went to school for music or have their own singing career. So the joke is like I'm getting further and further down the list because I was fifth when I wrote the song, but then we've been adding different people. And then our keyboard player apparently doesn't sing, but then he like put something on Instagram that he was singing a Justin Bieber cover. And I was like, dang, this guy can really sing too. So I'm like dropping down to 6th, 7th, 8th. The only player that's potentially I have never heard sing. Our drummer can also sing really well and was the lead singer of his band. But the only player that I haven't technically heard sing is our sax player, although he's a music teacher and generally has like an awesome ear for sound. So I'm skeptic. I believe that he could sing well, even though he says he doesn't. So I could be as low as 9th. Definitely on right now, I'm in like the 7th, 8th territory. We'll find out. But when I wrote the song, I was the 5th best singer in the band, and I'm hoping to get back there soon.
Man, everybody in your band is a dark horse.
Seriously, like you should hear. I mean, some of them have their own bands that they sing lead with, which is fun. There's like a big group of people in our band, and we share members with another band. So they just had a show at Union Stage, and it's fun to support each other and get to share members because there's enough music to go around.
Just like clothing at a used thrift store. Oh, she did it. So you mentioned that one of your goals was to release a studio album, but this is a live album, correct?
Yeah, it is live in studio. So there was no crowd or anything like that. But we recorded them live. Actually, some of them in 2025, but some of them as late as 2024. So like late 2024. Yeah.
So you're talking all one take.
All one take, yeah. And then some of it even got recorded with like tape, like literally cassette tape. Our studio engineer or production engineer was big into like tape equipment, which creates this kind of vintagey sound, especially on the drums. It sounds good. It sounds really good. So a lot of times, I mean, nowadays there's all these plugins and this and that to try to get back to this vintage sound that just is like it sounds great automatically coming through the tape. So it's not like it sounds bad. It doesn't sound like low quality or anything like that. I mean, imagine all those records you hear, Beatles, the Eagles, Pink Floyd, all of that was also on tape. So it's just amazing that it feels like such a distant past, but in a way, the equipment is still available and it's just a little more impractical. So like it's not easy to kind of punch in or do this and that. You really do have to be careful about how many takes you're doing in this and that.
For people who don't know, normally there's a lot of digitization that happens when you're recording. It's usually just one or two of the members of a band that are doing something at the same time, usually just one person, and then it's the next person, and everything's really layered. So doing something on actual tape, as you mentioned before, is more of a painstaking kind of process. But I do think it results in a much richer sound that is more authentic. So just a little helper for people out there who aren't as old school as some of us are. What inspired the songwriting on the album?
I would say lots of it has to do with my spiritual journey. So about 5-6 years ago, I started to get into spiritual stuff, manifestation, meditation, crystals, tarot cards, yoga, all that world, singing bowls. And I just felt so inspired by this connection to something beyond our physical realm. I still haven't really been able to put my name on how I identify that, but I would say lots of my songs are connected to that journey in some way, shape, or form, or honestly, connections with the cosmos. I think what I would like the album theme to be is like basically a spirit, a pure spirit, no physical body, no sin, no trauma, is just experiencing basically bliss, heaven, this or that. And then they realize or they have the opportunity to incarnate onto earth. And so they take that opportunity to incarnate onto earth. They get formed into a body. They form an ego, start to experience the temptations of earth, and then kind of lose their path a little bit and then come back to the place where they're like, oh, I remember the spirit that I am, the pure spirit that I can always return back to. And that's something that I feel like I've learned over the years of like, I used to be so literal and physical and analytical. And I'm like, there's something bigger going on that's sort of driving everything here. And that's inspiring to me, to think like my body is not the only thing that is me. There's something else, the spirit there. And so I like to play with that idea. And I love this idea of making an album that takes people on that journey. So yeah, we have the songs, and now we're just working on the interludes that sort of weave everything together. And I'm going to have some voices too from different spiritual mentors or connections of mine who have just said some really cool, interesting stuff. I recorded them to sort of have these voices. I liked in Dark Side of the Moon, in The Wall for Pink Floyd, where they had these like things. You're like, oh, what does that mean? I remember hearing in was it Another Brick on the Wall where they say you can't have your pudding if you haven't had your meat, and it's just like these weird phrases. So I'm gonna try to weave in some of those like gems of spiritual or wisdom. Yeah.
Excellent. I totally dig that. How are songs usually born for you? Does it start with a lyric, a riff, the bridge?
Good question. Often it will start with a chord progression, and then I'll improvise on top of it, to try to get a melody and just hear what the melody is feeling like. I like to start with the melody ideally, but there have been a few times where I've started with the lyrics. Actually, I last year I went to a hypnotist for the first time. So I went to a hypnotist for 7 sessions, and she basically like hypnotized me and commanded me to write music because I went to her and said that I wanted to unlock. I felt blocked, this and that. And she was like, well, she did a deep hypnosis with me and basically told me tomorrow the first thing that you do when you wake up, go to your notebook and just write whatever. Like you have to write something. Doesn't have to be good. Don't worry about it being perfect. Just write what literally whatever you're thinking of tomorrow morning. And that was how I wrote the song Spring. I made it. So that was really cool because I felt like, yeah, that was just one of those moments where I was like, this is so trippy and cool. But yeah, that was one opportunity to write lyrics first. And then I kind of built around, I actually had a chord progression that I had been playing with before. So I kind of refreshed that and then matched everything together. But yeah, generally I've been finding a new one lately that I really like. And I just played around with this chord progression that kind of worked and sounded different. And then started to hear a melody on top of it and just match the mood and then see like what sounds good and try to make English or sometimes Spanish words. Cause I have a few songs in Spanish that match the vibe and just try to piece it all together. So there's sometimes I've had Sacred Energy was a song that actually I wrote in 24 hours or less. But that's rare. Eternal Peace, for example, took me like a year. Like I kept like working on it, changing things, swapping out lyrics. So yeah, generally sometimes they come in quick and I'll just like get it quick and everything will be done. But often it will be like a multiple month process of refining and choosing and swapping out stuff. But it's fun. I love that every song comes in a little bit differently.
So you mentioned earlier that are you the ninth member or are you backed by 9 people?
I'm the ninth, so I'm backed by 8 people.
But it's also Stephen Soul in the 7. So I teach English, but someone's miscalculating.
Yes, I know that's gonna hopefully not be an issue in the long term because lots of people get confused or tripped up by it. But I would say when I thought of that 7, because at first I was just Steven Soul and then I had a band, but I was like, I kind of want to have a more band name feel to it. So it just came to me like Steven Soul in the 7 just sounds good and it sounds interesting. And then I like 7 has kind of like a deep spiritual meaning and it has stuff like that. But yeah, I would say I'm open-minded to playing with more or less. The 7 doesn't have to be perfect. When I thought of it, it wasn't even 7 people anyway. So like we were close, but it's close enough. It's
you
8.
manifested those extra members. That's what you did.
Yeah. And honestly, I would love to just keep playing with more and more people. Like we don't have any strings, but that could be something that would be really fun in the future or harp player, like crazy stuff like that. So we'll see. It could be Steven Soul and the 11, which is another spiritual cool number.
Yeah. So, by the way, that's my birthday, 7/11.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
wow.
So I should just be rolling in the luck, but we're not there.
Okay.
But when it comes to songwriting, how do you make sure everyone feels heard? Is it a democratic process, or do you start with the music and then pitch it to them? What is that process like?
Yeah. Because lots of members of the band have their own creative outlets for their own songwriting process. Like our bass player, his name's Leaf. He's an individual artist and he also plays in a collective with some other artists as well as our band. And he's also the producer of our band. So if anything, I'll write stuff with Leaf in the studio. So often the process is that I'll bring a song to Leaf or sometimes Tyler, our lead guitar player, or Randy, our trumpet player, is also my vocal teacher. I'll just bring them stuff that I'm working on. So generally I try to bring something that's like mostly there, but open for creative input and then let people bring their own creativity into it. But yeah, Leaf, the producer, is an amazing songwriter and he's an amazing producer. So anything that I bring to him, he tends to enhance and make really interesting. And sometimes he'll tweak, little chords here and there or tweak He doesn't jump too much into the lyrics, so the lyrics would be something for the most part that I'm working on myself. I'm open minded always, and I've worked with different music friends and this and that, and like to get people's input. But at the end of the day, I'm sort of the main lyricist. There will be, but yeah, the horns players. They work with Leaf, who sort of kind of music directs certain aspects of the instrumentation as well for the live band. But yeah, generally speaking, I'm very open minded, and I love bringing something that's like 90% of the way there to the band, and then usually it's just like, oh wow, it switched into something that I didn't even imagine in the first place. So that's the fun part about playing with a band, as opposed to just being a single singer songwriter.
And the songs that you're working on now for what will be the studio album, how is it musically different, or is it musically different from your Sunshine Wine EP?
I think developing vocally. So listening back to stuff that's earlier from 2024, I'm like, like I can sing so much better now than I used to, which is good. That I've been taking vocal lessons, like I said, fifth best singer in the band, taking vocal lessons from other members of the band, and I'm improving, which is exciting. I still have a long way to go. I know it's a journey, but that's one thing that's different, is that I feel like my voice is getting better and a little bit stronger. Uh, and then in terms of the Sunshine Wine EP, there's actually a little bit of psychedelic on Sunshine Wine EP. With Spring, I'd say could be in the vein, a little bit of psychedelic, but I'm going to lean a little bit more into the psychedelic Pink Floyd concept album stuff. But yeah, generally speaking, I think this sound will be continuing. Like, it's sort of this dreamy rock type sound. But I think the main thing will be the fluidity of how, and the concept of like having a full journey for the listener to start here and kind of go here and like follow this whole journey. I always loved listening to full albums, and I know they're kind of like going out of style now, but I'm excited to have something there that people that are into the music can dive a little deeper and like have a full body of work in one sitting.
I think our attention spans are so small right now, but I think people who truly like listening to music will sit down with an entire album, even if it is in the background, because they don't have, the tangible album like we used to have. For better or for worse. I mean, I've got a whole bunch of CDs I just cleaned out of my car, and I'm like, I don't even know what to do with those. So it's interesting. What's more important to you at the moment, especially when you're playing bigger and bigger venues, working on new music? Is it more important to increase your social media numbers or selling bigger and bigger venues?
They're both so important. I hate that social media is so important, but I feel like it's a shame. I guess maybe if you do have stats of, oh, we played 9:30 club, this and that kind of supersedes. But I feel like, I was just talking about this last night, that unfortunately your social media becomes your resume in a way in the music industry. Like, oh, and I've known friends or whatever that bought or whatever got fake followers and stuff, and that's kind of obvious to see too nowadays if you're looking into it. But yeah, I think that it would be nice to gain social media, and I started to be a little bit more loose with my social media and start to introduce more comedic stuff, including the interview with the shopper, the psychedelic folk rock shopper, and stuff like that with our band. We just released something last night that was like Godfather parody with our guitar player, about our show. So we're doing some funny stuff, and that feels fun because it gives me a chance to incorporate the improv comedy that I've been working on for 10 years. And that seems to connect on social media too. Speaking of attention span, that it's like people kind of don't really have the attention span to listen to a full 3-minute song on social media, obviously. So like, that's always interesting. It's like, should I just pick 20 seconds of the song, or, the hook, and like how to always frame? But that's a whole nother world. It's like, you have to spend all the time in making really good songs, but then marketing it becomes even more important in terms of growing, in terms of like what commercial success or what attention, selling tickets. It's all connected. But yeah, I'd love to do both. For me personally, much rather love the venue side of things. I love playing live. It's so fun to play with the band live, and I want to just keep increasing that aspect of our journey. And on the other hand, like necessity, I feel like social media is that necessity that you got to keep just pouring attention into, despite how evil and icky it feels sometimes.
I don't think I've met a musician yet who have said, "Oh, I got into this business not because I like making music. It's because I want to be this social media guru." And
Mhm.
it's such a double-edged sword. Would you say comedy is sort of not the sole way, but one way that you can kind of stay authentic on social media while you're trying to promote new music and also just be a human being?
Yeah, I do, because I think that that's something that's natural for me. I like being playful, lighthearted. Often in my friend groups, like I've just have jokes with people, like enjoy laughing with people and making people laugh. And I think that because that is something that is authentic to me, I like to just be silly to myself, even like just thinking of myself, making myself laugh, or I'm working on a song and just be like, this is making me laugh. So in general with social media, I do think that the interesting part about it is like the more and more sort of stripped back and authentic that you are, vulnerable, the more people like it. Um, so rather than pretending to be some crazy big rock star and this and that, it's just like, this is where I'm at in my journey right now. And the comedy brings a lot of fun for it for me in the band. And so if it's fun for us, then usually it's fun for other people. So we've been having a ton of fun with it. We're going to be doing some comedy bits at our show on Friday too. And yeah, that's a fun way to bring in my authentic self that kind of blends music and comedy.
Awesome. What's up next for you guys after next week's show?
After next week's show, promoting the live album that we're releasing, I have been in talks with Black Cat about a future show. Black Cat on 14th Street in DC, iconic DC venue. So we were talking about a show later this year in 2026. I'm actually going to email him after we hang up and see if we could get something on the books. But yeah, that would be the goal. I'm going to try to start to play some more smaller shows, like So Far Sounds and stuff like that. And then we also want to take a little tour. So we were talking about taking a little tour to New York, Philly, and State College, PA. And that's probably on the books that would probably be on the books for fall of 2026. But in the meantime, I think I realized that to get the studio album out, I think I'll really have to kind of buckle down through the winter and the spring and focus a lot of the energy into the studio album. So that's the plan, get the studio album. But we're also going to release our next studio release, which we already filmed the music video for. We got it already. I just got to put it up into distribution, which is Fifth Best Singer in the Band. So that's going to be our exciting next release after the Live at Manor time. We got Fifth Best Singer in the Band. And that was really, really fun to film, to do with the band. There's incredible harmonies going on in that. We got the sax and trumpet, guitar solo, and sort of like a funny fake announcer intro. So I'm super excited about that. From when I play it, I hear that from a lot of people, friends, fans, that are like, that's your most interesting and unique song. So it could be cool to start promoting that. I'm excited to get that one out there and just see how people respond to it, because it's different. And it does blend in the comedy too, which I like.
Nice. Well, stay tuned for much more from Stephen Soul and the Seven. This is Jackie. Thanks to In the Key of Change and Chorus FM.
Thank you.
All right.